Welcome to this episode of Athletic Training Chat. On this episode, we venture outside of the athletic training profession just a little bit, in that the person we are interviewing, Ryan Gaffney, is not actually an athletic trainer, but wanted to share his experience with athletic trainers, not only in his experience as an athlete, but also just as his experience in being in a relationship with an athletic trainer, seeing what they can do in the business and industrial setting, and some of the unique things that the profession brings to the table. So we thought this would be a great advocate episode to help just kind of see from the outside. He also gives some really practical information of maybe trying to get into some of those settings. One thing before the episode gets started, we talk about diagnosing and if that is something that athletic trainers can do, and there's potentially still some confusion around that depending on who you ask. So I just wanted to read the definition from the BOC website, in that athletic trainers are healthcare professionals who render service or treatment under the direction or collaboration with a physician in accordance with their education and training and the state statutes, rules, and regulations. As part of the healthcare team, services provided by ATCs include injury and illness prevention, wellness promotion, education, emergent care, examination, and clinical diagnosis, therapeutic intervention, and rehabilitation of injuries and medical conditions, also that were recognized by the AMA. I think when we were talking about diagnosis within this, the confusion was that yes, we can diagnose, but our ability to take it to the next level in terms of getting the imaging and the other things that might be needed to confirm that is not quite there yet, depending on where you're working and your setup with physicians and so on. With that, we touch on that a little bit at the end, but I wanted to make sure that we put that out there before the episode got started. And as always, we are brought to you by Mueller Sports Medicine, but we did want to give a special reach out to them. They lost their founder, Kurt Mueller, just recently, who passed away, who was a pioneer for sports medicine products and everything that was started by Mueller. He was the guy. So our deepest heartfelt thoughts and condolences go out to the company of Mueller, the family, and everybody associated with it. We truly, again, appreciate everything you do for us and for the profession, and just wanted to let them know that we're thinking about them during this hard time. So with that, please enjoy this episode.
Well, yeah, I was just gonna just talk about a little bit about my background, because you mentioned that being an athlete. So for people that obviously don't know me, my name's Ryan Gaffney, and I'm from East Lansing, Michigan originally. Played hockey. I played a ton of sports. I played hockey. I played golf. Played soccer. Played football. Baseball. Growing up as a kid, at one point in time, I was playing 4 sports at once. Um, but my real athletic training experience came in junior A hockey and in college. And that I had a few serious injuries that without athletic trainers, I don't know if I would have been able to actually continue throughout my season, because being a hockey player, the one thing that's extremely important to have is it's all about legs. Legs are such an important role. And so for me, I actually dislocated my hip back in 2012 to 2013. And of course, I'm stubborn, so I didn't get it fixed right away or get it checked out. But eventually I did. I got it realigned and fixed. And then the care that came in to help me throughout the hockey season and maintain that and continue my ability to play was an athletic trainer. Certain stretches, certain preventative care, things that I could do at home, all made the difference, because dislocating your hip and trying to play hockey at the intensity that I was playing it at is extremely hard. And so it made a big difference. Even between periods, I would sit with athletic trainer and have that person, that individual, helped me maintain at least flexibility, comfortability, and we just kind of worked as a unit to make sure that I could perform on the ice. My second experience, and this is another reason why I kind of the hockey part stands out to me, that this just validates how knowledgeable athletic trainers are about the human body. So one game I actually got stepped on in my Achilles, and I was bleeding. Yeah, and I was bleeding in my boot, and I kept playing, and then I finally got off, and I realized that I got a pretty bad cut. So the athletic trainer was right there on the D side of the bench. Showed him what was going on. So he actually was able to walk me through the steps of what was happening. So I was starting to turn really pale. I was actually starting to, I didn't pass out, but he said it's possible. So he was preparing me. He was getting me ready that, this is what can happen. And thankfully I didn't pass out. But the thing that I remember the most about that experience was that I ended up having, he couldn't tell me, this is the part that I think, was interesting, is that I know you guys can't necessarily diagnose something, but I said, hypothetically, what can you determine this injury is, like in terms of like, what would you say? And he said it was a level 2 tear in my Achilles. So he gave me instruction as to suggestion more so of what I should go do. I need to go someplace, obviously, to get stitches, and get it looked at. So of course, being myself, I go to an urgent care, which was my mistake. And they look at it and they're like, "Oh, we can just sew it up." So they sew it up. I'm having a tough time walking for an extended period of time. Finally heals. It calluses over. And about a year and a half later, I go and see a specialist, and they take a few images of my ankle. And I asked them. I said, what is it that you actually found? And they said it was a level 2 tear. And so for me, when I look at that, that's pretty powerful for athletic trainers, because I had a guy that told me what it was before even going into imaging. So that just tells me, like, I was just very impressed that somebody was able to determine something just by simply looking or evaluating me in the circumstances, and then saying, this is what this is. So
yeah, those are a couple hardcore injuries you had going on there.
yeah, well,
I guess
I was
hockey
a
can
little
bring that out in you.
Yeah.
Yeah, urgent care is always an interesting one. We try and hesitate to send people there more than we need to, just because you'll get the very general. They're very good at what they do. They're not always so good with the sports injuries, as it's not necessarily their wheelhouse.
Right.
One of the go ahead.
Oh no, go. I was gonna let you go ahead. Yeah.
I was just gonna give a little bit more background on how we got connected. Kind of best way to describe it. You tagged us on a Instagram story about a conference or something you were attending. I was talking about athletic trainers in the industrial setting in the workplace, and someone that you know very well, and we haven't seen in on quite a few years, but had previously on the show, Andrea Dosedla, talking about the industrial setting. And so we reached out, and that's kind of how we got connected on this topic. And we're going to have a few more industrial setting episodes coming up as we reach out to a few more people. But you made some mention of how you see ATCs potentially changing the business industry and how healthcare works within it. And I was wondering if you could just elaborate on that, coming from the vantage point of not being an athletic trainer.
Well, I can tell you too, I am a business owner as well. So being in the business industry, one of the most important costs that we're trying to cut down are healthcare costs.
Right.
I mean, it's, and now you see, and my business is I'm a small business, but there are many corporations locally where I'm originally from and in Wisconsin that I found have wellness programs. And they coincide a lot with ATCs in a lot of ways. Because for me, I want to have, as a business, I want to have the most productivity out of my team. I want my team to be healthy. I want my team to not have to take days off of work if not needed. And so what I've personally experienced and what I've seen, and something I'm interested as a business owner, and just kind of evaluating the way the process has worked for such a long time, is that for years we've handled a problem as it comes instead of actually taking preventative action. And for me, that's pretty it's pretty dumb that we've always gone about it that way instead of thinking, how can we avoid having these injuries or having these problems to begin with. And so it's just, I think that athletic trainers in industrial and corporate offices and businesses, that I think that's going to be the future, to be honest, because of the fact that you guys have so much knowledge in determining what an injury is almost before, like, you can just evaluate the body. You can ask the right questions. You can basically, you're like investigators of the body. When you find out what it is, you're able to give proper care. You're able to, I wish you could diagnose, because I think it could give you more validity in that sense. But I think that you're able to help that individual out even more, knowing how accurate your decision was, or what you're being told. I've seen it more times than not that you're able to accurately decide what the issue is, or even what the problem, or how it stems from, where it stems from. And then you're able to counter it with either, proper direction, proper suggestion, and a lot of people benefit. And so for me, as a business owner, I'd rather have that in my office, and have that so that people, they're having trouble, whether it's affecting their work or whatever, and they're just their daily life, can get that help so that they can improve, and just be more of a contributor to the business that they're at.
No, I agree. I think it's a huge area, the prevention side of things, that the profession has focused on and will continue to, not just in sports, but like you said, wellness programs and ergonomics, and looking at different things. We tend to get very creative as a profession with what we can do with the resources that we have. So you kind of covered it. Go ahead.
I was just going to add that I think right now, just because I think athletic trainers haven't in general been given the kind of respect that they deserve. I think a lot of times, because of old school thinking, people are so wanting to go directly to a doctor, or wanting to go to see a nurse or something. And in my mind, I think that's going to change. I think right now is a pinnacle time for athletic trainers to kind of have a voice of their own. And I think that those people who are in the industrial setting have the opportunity to set up new platform for athletic trainers, so that they can be, and again, we need you for sports, but I think that there's so much more availability for you than the need for you. And I think that we're going to find that out and see that, because businesses, like I said, healthcare costs are expensive. And if we can cut those down, and athletic trainers can cut those down significantly, and as sad as it is, when it's business, that's what it always comes down to, is money. So if they can save in any corner or avenue, they're going to. And there's a lot of other benefits aside from the money aspect. But yeah, so I just want to add to that, then add that in.
Yeah, kind of to that topic, it comes down to the dollars for a business. What do you think it would take, or what convinced you optimally to, like, it's an investment on the front end, obviously, to have someone there and pay, whether it's contracting or actually hiring them on to pay their salary, whatever it may be. Like, is it just hard data, or looking at lost data and how much work comp could be, or things like that, obviously depending on the setting, is that what it takes to justify covering the expense on the front end? Or, what would you say is the most convincing factors for that?
Facts are always going to win. Anybody, you could go into any business corporation, you could go into any university and say, hey, this is what I can do. But anybody can say one thing, doing is another. So when you have actually factual data that can support the claims that you say, and the data is out there, I know the data is, that, costs are coming down in places that people are able to use, in the business industry. And so if you're able to get that data and provide it, or at least show it, that creates an opportunity for you to validate even more what you can do, and how you can help a business.
Oh, I get that's definitely a topic and one that I haven't been as good on myself, as looking at outcome measures and more of that data, and actually thinking in that business mindset to sell yourself in the profession. Just got off of a conversation with another person about that as well. You kind of commented on this to a little bit of a degree, but unique skill sets that you think athletic trainers bring to healthcare. You talked on it some, but is there anything that we didn't cover?
The unique skill sets. Well, it does, like, again, I'll kind of reverberate what I just had mentioned too, is just the ability to determine an injury or cause of injury just by seeing, like, just by looking at the body. Now, every injury isn't visible. So, just if you break a leg, or you break a wrist, or you have exposed bone or something, those are serious injuries, but they happen. And there's a lot of injuries, though, that happen internally that are either certain back pains. Back is a big one. Back pains are the most common, that I believe, and from what I've heard. But I mean, a lot of internal injuries, I've seen athletic trainers be able to determine what it is, and even kind of find the root cause of it. And then from there, be able to find a solution and help prevent it from being worse, and actually improve it to be better. I think that's very unique. When I gave you my example about the second degree tear, this gentleman was able to determine that a year and a half prior to me actually getting imaging testing done, when it had calloused over, and what's considered a specialist in imaging, was able to say, yeah, you had a second degree tear, and you probably should have had surgery. So, that's the kind of thing that I think is very impressive. And I think that's what gives you the unique skill set and ability to, and I think that honestly, that's something that's overlooked, that isn't understood yet, because not everybody's had my experience. But I think as time goes on, and people like myself get the opportunity to speak more on your behalf, and get into business and be a part of a business, or be a business owner or manager, or whatever it might be, you guys are going to be more considered and included in that atmosphere.
Going off of that, what can athletic trainers do in connecting with people like yourself to form those relationships? Getting in the door of it. Obviously, you've got a unique avenue into understanding the profession. But is it, if I had never met you and I was wanting to try and get into your service, to provide services for you, and or have you become an advocate for our profession, what would you suggest an athletic trainer do in that regard?
Just in trying to get that connection, in a sense, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, get that connection, and then ultimately, gather, like, your support, like you said, advocating for the profession from someone that's not in the profession.
Well, you guys already kind of do it, I think, but you're not doing it in the correct avenue. You already do it on a daily basis as athletic trainers, where one of the biggest things you have to do is communicate. You guys probably all have I would assume even yourself, you probably have a great relationship with the people that you work with, because you have to. There has to be a level of trust there. There has to be a development of some type of friendship, whether it's, professional or just somebody that you at least say the minimal hi to, even if they don't use you all the time or use you at all. Um, but I would say that if you take those communication skills and you direct them into more of a marketing aspect, or you kind of look at businesses and approach them, as a business owner for myself, I can give you an example of what I do. I just go to businesses and walk right in, and I say, "Can I speak to somebody that's in HR?" Because that's what my business relates to, is the HR and the wellness programs. Um, and when you get that opportunity, that's your opportunity to discuss what it is that you can and can do, and again, provide the data and just communicate what you're trying to accomplish. I feel like for athletic trainers too, the opportunities are there. I think they're not being aggressive enough to go for them. And I could be wrong. I could be wrong about that, but I do think that there are opportunities out there, and people just need to jump on them more or get more aggressive or ambitious about pursuing them.
More entrepreneurial, basically.
A little bit, and I guess that's a little bit biased because that's the way I am.
Right.
But I also think that if you want to move up in anything, you have to be, a level of independence has to be there, where go get what you want. If you want more out of you guys put a lot of time and money into your school. I mean, you guys go get a master's degree. You guys put a lot of education up front there, and it's not always about money. There's a lot of rewards of being an athletic trainer that come with the people that you meet, the camaraderie you create on teams. It goes much further than just the care, because of the relationships that you create. But I think that I honestly think that that's something that you have to, if you want more from what you've put in, bring out that ambition and go get it.
I can agree. I think that's one that the profession's been for so long, and our avenues, and we're just slowly starting to expand out into those other areas. But creating that and the selling of yourself is not always comfortable. Whereas applying to go work at a university, you pretty much know what you're going to get yourself into. So I think that's very thought-provoking and good in that regard.
Yeah.
One kind of more question than this, and again, you've kind of covered it already, but to get a little bit more in depth, like you've talked about ATCs in the prevention side and potentially within the wellness program. Anywhere else you see other, obviously if an injury occurs, they can be really beneficial. I believe Andrea talked about actually being like out on the job site when work is occurring and being available. Sounds like it's some boring days for her, but was an experience.
Yeah. I think that as athletic trainers, your presence is necessary. It's hard to do your job from not being in the atmosphere where either the injury occurs or the people that you need to create those relationships are. So I think really that's the most important thing, is just actually being present, and understanding. I mean, obviously, like you kind of just said, you knew like when you get into university what you're getting into. But I would think that, if you're in an more unstructured atmosphere, you just need to be present, and you need to really focus on creating those relationships with those people.
Agreed. Anything else around this topic that you wanted to cover? I kind of exhausted the specific questions that we had for this before we jump into our AT chat. Slightly modified 5 questions that we have.
No, that's okay. I mean, if I don't say, I'll probably say it a few times. I just think that there's so much use for athletic trainers, and I've said it, again here, and I've said it many times to other people that, like I said, this is a pinnacle time of education, and people need to learn more about what it is that you guys do, because the use for you guys is right there. I mean, I think you're fighting an old school mindset too. So a lot of people that make the decisions are baby boomers. They're an old school generation, and and it's not to knock on them. Those are my parents. They're all good. They're all great people. So, but their look on things, um, a lot of what I hear is people don't want to change. Well, we've always done it this way, so why would we change it? And we kind of have to move past that, because the only way we advance as a civilization as humans is by change and taking chances and doing. So I think one of the things that, like I said, again, a pinnacle time for you as athletic trainers is going to be now in the next 5 to 10 years, because people are going to realize, and especially when folks like myself in our generation start to get more into the leadership positions, the CEO positions, we're very health conscious. And so we're going to be aware of how important it is to prevent something rather than just wait until it happens.
Well said. I agree. Well, going into these questions, making this one a little bit more specific, where do you see athletic training as a profession going in the next 5 to 10 years in that kind of business and industrial setting? Do you see one in every single business?
I definitely see it growing. I definitely see, I would say that there are going to be some major companies that are large, that will adopt the athletic training style. And I think there'll be a lot of smaller businesses that will do it too. I would say in the next 5 years, you'll probably see a lot of smaller businesses adopt it, in a few big businesses. And then in the 10-year span, based on the results and the data and what we're seeing, because it's all going to come together. People talk, it's
Right.
not going to be a secret that how much of a difference that they're making. In the 10-year span, you're going to see a lot of major companies bring on athletic trainers.
It would be great to see. What advice would you give to an athletic trainer that is trying to get into this business and industrial setting? Again, we've kind of covered this, but if you could kind of summarize that into
Any opportunity you have to go out and, whether it's a marketing event, whether it's a social event, a business event, be aware of your community and be aware of where you want to be and attend those. I know everybody has business cards. I know everybody has emails, and the only way that you're going to get in those positions is if you are able to put yourself there in the first place, the opportunity. So take advantage of what's going on around you, because all sorts of communities, my community, East Lansing, Milwaukee, Wisconsin here, there's a ton of different things going on all the time that if you just go there, talk to people, make connections, it'll come full circle. It just does. And especially, like I said, you guys as athletic trainers are all naturally nice people. You have to be, because you have to deal with a lot of complainers. You have to deal with a lot of people that just are difficult. People are challenging. So that's more of a kudos to you guys, so that it should be easy when you go into a business where people want to meet you guys should shine. So it should be pretty easy. You just have to put yourself in that position. And it might be some crazy job. It might not even be industrial. It might be something that we're not even thinking of right now, because it just hasn't happened.
I like that. Tweaking this one just a little bit more. So obviously you run your own business that's been successful. You've got a unique outlook on things. So what is an influential resource that you've come across that you think would apply to athletic trainers? Typically this is something medical related when we ask athletic trainers, but I'd be curious as if there's something that you've found to be a great resource that you think would cross over.
Let's see here. I have to think about that one for a second. A resource I found in my career that would apply to athletic trainers. I would say this is kind of a silly answer, because I'm not super fond of it, but it's a real thing, is social media. I think social media is a pretty outstanding resource that has helped out with my own career. There's a not an app, but a website. It's called Alignable.
Yeah.
And Alignable, I didn't really know about it until I actually started my business, and I realized, like, there's a lot of people on there, and you get a lot of promotion, and you get a lot of connections through people that you didn't know were connected, and that's pretty cool. I think that if you are somebody, in social media is all. It's a whole different story. I have a whole opinion about social media and what I think about it. But I do think that it does have advantages for people that want to expand um, awareness of themselves, or they want to make connections. And I think LinkedIn is a great resource, obviously, because that's more of a professional one. But even Facebook and Instagram are great places because in that instance, you can control the information and you can control the outlook of what you're trying to inform people about. So even your Instagram page, I was looking at it, it's all athletic training based, and I think that that's exactly what the beauty is about social media, is that you can put the content out there that you think is necessary to either educate, um, and I think that's one thing that if I could say as a resource is to use social media is to really focus on applying what you can do, because I don't think that athletic trainers, you guys are, again, going back to your personalities, you're all so nice that you have to brag a little bit. You got to be able to say, this is what I can do. And I know that because of this. I mean, even in your situation with athletes, I know that some stuff is, very confidential, so you can't share. But you can say hypothetically, hypothetically, if I ran into this situation, this is how I would handle it. Or if I've had an experience like this, no names, I've had so-and-so have this happen before. This is what we did, and this is how we found the solution, and this is where that individual is now, without naming their names. So you're keeping confidentiality, but you're able to. I mean, how do you tell a story and tell what you do without, if you just don't tell it all? I mean, nobody knows exactly all that you do if you can't actually use the stories and the experiences, because you guys know what you do, but telling everybody else in the world that don't, that's I think the big thing. So that would be my suggestion with the resources, is use them to your advantage and really do your best to inform people what it is that you can do. Because, and I know you've probably heard this before, and this is more of an insult, honestly, for all the work and time that you put into being an athletic trainer, is when you say that, people are like, well, oh, so you work out and train people.
Right.
And that's I mean, when I hear that, it upsets me for you guys, because that's like that's disappointing. Like, yes, I'm sure you guys have a great knowledge of how to properly work out with good form, and you do know those things, but that is not at all the realm of your wheelhouse. So part of that, I think, is using those resources and just getting education out there.
Yeah, I think that's really good. And like, I agree on the social media thing. For as much kind of junk is out there, there's also a lot of really good stuff. And I can believe that from the business side as much as the sports medicine and, the Insta famous thing, stuff where if you can really dig into people that put out really good content, A, you can put out your own good stuff, but B, you can get information so much quicker now.
Yeah, and something else too that I think is underutilized is YouTube. I mean, YouTube is used by a lot of people, don't get me wrong, but in terms of athletic training, I there's some discussion on there, but I think that the approach and how YouTube can be used can be different and more effective, so it can help your guys' careers.
Right. In your time working with athletic trainers, again, you've kind of alluded to some of these things. If you could change or eliminate one thing, it could be a common practice that you've seen or a mindset in the field of athletic training, what would it be looking from the outside
in? I wish, now this is more of your common practice, is I wish you guys could diagnose, just because I know that when you do, it's accurate. Like, yep, you guys just know what you're doing.
And like, we can tell you what it is, but our ability to go on to that next part of, ordering imaging, so you didn't have to wait a year and a half to get it done. That's kind of the next thing.
Exactly. In that sense, I wish you guys had more power, and I think that might come down the road, and because I think that's something that's kind of out of your hands. That's just all.
And it gets political.
People making decisions. Yeah, it's OSHA and all the other nonsense that you got to deal with. But I would say the mindset. I think that we kind of covered that too, and just having that independent, more entrepreneurial mindset of if you're in a position like and you want to go someplace else or you want to test the waters, you have to go and get it. So you have to, and a lot of it can be just called a side hustle. Just if you want to do your own thing or you want to pursue a business, you just got to go after it. And so I think the mindset, and I could be mistaken, but I think athletic trainers have this idea of, like, we go to school, this is what we're doing, and this is the path, and this is it. And if you can change that mindset, you're going to change everybody's career and athletic trainers' careers going forward as a whole.
I like it. Final question. What does working with an athletic trainer mean to you?
It's outstanding. I've never had a bad experience with athletic trainers. And that's the one thing. And that's not even just with the portion of it where I'm getting assistance for a physical ailment or something I'm trying to improve on, but even the relationships. Just, I've never had an athletic trainer where I was like, man, I really don't like you, you know? And that's an important part because it actually helps with the care and it helps create that level of trust that, this person's going to manipulate me a little bit or show me things that I need. And I have to have some form of trust with that person. And that's created by the communication, the personality, and just kind of speaking to on behalf of knowledge. I really respect people that have a lot of knowledge and can speak it and then show it. And so when I've been able to, work with athletic trainers, that's been a big highlight is, you have a conversation, you talk about what they're doing with school or where they're at. And obviously when I was in sports, we had both the athletic trainers that were in the training portion of it that were still in school. And then we had obviously the ones that were, graduated, been, doing this for years, but they're all learning. So, and that's what it's all about. I think is just, that's important, having that relationship. So athletic trainers, to me, I think they're the future. Honestly, I think the athletic trainers are the future of preventative care and are the future of a lot of business and just healthcare because of the fact that, again, that mindset. We've always thought, let's wait until there's a problem. Well, if we can avoid the problem to begin with, why not? And obviously that's considering even that some things are out of your control and things are going to happen. But if we can tweak that a bit, it can make all the difference.
Very well said. Anything else that you wanted to cover or share, and kind of leading up to that, people want to reach out to you, where they can follow what you're doing? Questions?
Well, I was going to say thank you, Joel, for having me on. I hope that moving forward, you have the opportunity to bring more people on like myself that have experienced what athletic trainers can do firsthand on the other end of it. And I think that we kind of agreed, and we talked about that earlier, is just because that creates that validity for you guys. We can tell our stories, and it shows your worth more. Because I could tell you that I'm the best businessman in the world, but it doesn't mean anything until I actually have the proof or I have other people to back it up.
Right.
So I think that will make a significant difference for you guys entirely. But yeah, for myself, I mean, I don't, my business, I'm actually in healthy vending. So I do MW Healthy Vending, which is Michigan and Wisconsin healthy vending, and anybody wants to check it out, they can. But that's again why I think that the HR programs and the wellness programs are important, and that they all are connected. So
awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time to be on the show. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Joel. Thanks for having me. I appreciate that a lot.